4 times as many. What you don't know, they're left behind. And we just couldn't supposedly bring them all. Now, nobody told the faculty this. So what we would do is faculty members and some parents and so forth, after we moved from Good Counsel and they boarded it up with boards, we break an entry, essentially, into Good Counsel in the evening hours and go get things we wanted. Because what we left is now in the ground at Good Counsel. It was just pushed in on the foundations. There were hundreds and hundreds of trophies. So students who graduated years before would go into the building and take the trophies that they won. A group of my students at Good Counsel in Wheaton, I always taught in room 106. Never thought of taking the nameplate for 106. So a group of seniors who I taught went into the old Good Counsel and took that and brought it to the place, which I thought was kind of nice. By the way, we really weren't breaking and entering. The people who owned the place said, anything you want, go ahead and take it, because they didn't want any of it. Now, Good Counsel as it existed in Wheaton, anybody remember it? Oh, okay, as it existed is all gone. If you go in that property now, it's townhouses. They said when they bought the property from us that they were going to keep what was called a Rafferty Center as a community center, but they since changed their minds and that's been torn down. So there's nothing, you'd never know there was a school there, which is kind of sad. It's all gone, as it were. And they're all townhouses, and I think they're building a new community center. I guess the one we built wasn't good enough, you know, for their needs, so they just tore it down actually in the last couple of years. So there's nothing left except trophies, old and new. Some have been added since we moved here for almost 5 years ago. The statues and the Stations of the Cross, he told you about the chapel. We're going to go on, next up is the cornerstone, and I'll explain that. And then next time you go in the cafeteria for lunch, there's a huge crucifix. Have you ever noticed that? That huge crucifix was the crucifix in the chapel of the original Our Lady of Good Counsel. And actually, it was much bigger. It had to be cut down because the beam going all the way down went really high up and all down and didn't fit in that spot. So they actually had to cut the beam and make it smaller to fit in that spot over there. So that gives you a little history here. The beast, oh, one more story. Have any of you had Mrs. Delmont as a sub yet, my wife? You will if you haven't. You'll get to know her. Now, when we moved here, and up until a couple of years ago, these trophies had so much dust on them, they were unbelievable. It was dirty looking. And Mr. Ramo was the president then, and for some reason, very few people wanted to say that it looked awful. Well, if you know my wife, and I do, that doesn't faze her in the least. So she launched it into Mr. Ramo and told him it looked disgusting. It gave Good Counsel a bad name. The next day, actually that afternoon, he had crews here dusting and cleaning, and with the order that it's always to be dusted and cleaned. So my wife said, if we earned a trophy, then that trophy deserves to be respected. You know, and not be just, I mean, there used to be, you could write your name on almost everything here. It was just so dusty and dirty. It was really awful looking. Okay, so that's the story with the trophies. Let's go down here.